My name is Amanda Trosten-Bloom, and I'm a principal with Corporation for Positive Change and a Unitarian Universalist. I'm also the project consultant for Gathered Here, which is an invitation to all Unitarian Universalists to discover our shared aspirations and unleash the power of our faith. Now, Gathered Here is anchored in a process called appreciative inquiry, which many of you have heard of before, but which is new to some. So what I'd like to do is take a few minutes to introduce you to appreciative inquiry and help you understand where it's been used and why it works the way that it does. Appreciative inquiry has been used over the past 20 years to promote positive change, strategic thinking, and culture transformation in businesses, nonprofits, NGOs, communities, and religious organizations all around the world. It's also been used in the Unitarian Universalist Association in a variety of congregations and at a staff level to create similar changes. It's an approach to organization and community development that fosters very high levels of commitment and involvement. It also builds positive, collaborative relationships among people of very diverse backgrounds. Some of the cases that we've worked on have involved people from different continents, from very different religious persuasions, from very different levels in organizations. It inspires hopeful and creative thinking, which in turn gives people the ability to take action in service of the things they really care about. Appreciative inquiry also connects people and organizations to their core values and to their calling. We look a lot at issues of legacy with appreciative inquiry, and that propels people forward. It also stirs people to action, both planned action that takes place as part of the structures in the appreciative inquiry process, and improvisational action as people forge new relationships and begin to see things that they care about together or to discover complementary strengths. Again, UU congregations and communities have used appreciative inquiry in support of planning, staffing, community development, stewardship, and multicultural growth, and have had incredibly positive, uplifting results over the last several years. Now, for those of you who don't know it, let's talk about what appreciative inquiry is. Appreciative inquiry is a lot about the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, and then we forget that they're stories. So with that in mind, I'd like to tell a story that illustrates what appreciative inquiry is and how it works. It's actually not a story from our tradition. It takes place in a business setting with a chain of car dealerships outside of the Cleveland area in the mid-1980s. ProCare, as it was known, had a reputation for exceptional customer satisfaction. And in fact, at the time that this takes place, 79% of their customers had described themselves as 100% satisfied with the services they'd received at the last customer satisfaction survey. But they were so committed to customer service that they decided that wasn't good enough. And so they hired a team of consultants to come in and help them get better, to close the gap between the 79% and the 100% customer satisfaction that they really wanted. The consultants began with interviews. They talked to the 21% of the folks who had described themselves as less than 100% satisfied to find out what was wrong. They analyzed all the results and put it together in reports and charts and graphs. Those charts and graphs went up in the break rooms. They created some training programs, some customer service training programs for the employees. Everybody went through this. They did some work with managers, and at the end of 6 months, they went back and resurveyed to see what the results would be. Now, to their horror, the scores had dropped. They had dropped rather significantly. And there was a great deal of hand-wringing going on. They couldn't figure out what had happened. They'd spent a great deal of time, energy, and money on this project and couldn't figure out what they had done wrong and how they were going to recover. Now, fortunately for them, one of their general managers, Chet Bowling, was a student of organizational behavior at the Weatherhead School of Management at the time. And Weatherhead was really one of the launching places for this new process called appreciative inquiry. He came back to his colleagues and he said, now, did we talk to the 79% of the people who described themselves as 100% satisfied? And his colleagues said, well, no, why would we do that? They're already happy with us. And he said, but do we know why they're happy with us? Do we really understand what it is we're doing that they love? Well, some light bulbs began to go off. And what it led to was that Chet, along with Jim Ludema, who's another colleague of ours, came in and launched another initiative, an inquiry into the outstanding customer service experience within ProCare. They did a whole series of one-on-one interviews with the customers who still described themselves as 100% satisfied. But it wasn't consultant interviews the way the first round was. They trained employees to go out and to talk to customers themselves. But they didn't stop there. Employees, not consultants, began a series of cross-locational interviews. They talked amongst themselves to figure out what each location was doing brilliantly that they could learn from, that they could carry or transport to other locations. And they also trained employees, not consultants, to go out and do what was called generative benchmarking, where they studied organizations that were really exceptional in the areas where they knew they were deficient. Now, 8 months passed, and they went back and they surveyed again. And this time, 95% of the customers described them as 100% satisfied with the services that they had provided. They had not only recovered what they had lost, but they had moved forward in some really profound ways. Years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a man who had served as a mechanic at ProCare while this initiative was going on. And I asked him, Bill, what was it like when you were working at ProCare during this initiative? And he said, there was an explosion of creativity and energy. He said, the organization was abuzz, was alive with possibilities. It was one of the most exciting times in my career. Now, this story shows you a bit of how AI works, but let's define it. Appreciative inquiry, or AI as it's been called, is the study of what gives life to human systems when they're at their best. Now there's a few pieces embedded in this that are important. One is, it's the study. It's about study. It's about inquiry. It's about looking into things. That the act of asking questions is a transformative act. It's about the study of what gives life, what gives hope, health, vitality. It's not the study of everything. It's not the study of problems. It's the study of what gives life. But it's not just the study of what gives life. It's the study of what gives life when the organization is at its best. To err is human. None of us are always at our best, and no organization is always at its best. But when it is, it's doing things that can be repeated, that can be learned from. And if we do those things more, we will be at our best more frequently than we normally are. Finally, it's the study of what gives life to human systems. When our computers break, it will do us no good to sit around and remember a time when they were working. We need to figure out what went wrong with them. We need to replace the part. We may need to throw it in the trash and get a new one. But that's not how human systems work. Problem solving, which is something that we are so good at, is an artifact of the Industrial Revolution. We learned to do something very well with machines that works impeccably with machines, and we thought that it would work with human beings. It does not work with human systems the same. Human systems move in the direction of what they consistently study and talk about. And appreciative inquiry gives us an opportunity to do just that. Appreciative inquiry builds on what works. It teaches us about who we are at our best and it helps us to do more of that. It closely connects people across differences in background, in theology, in age, in gender orientation, in ethnicity. Differences are important. It connects improbable pairs of people and then helps them move together. It focuses us on what we are for. Now, why does this matter? UUs know what we want to change in the world, but do we know what we are for? And what we are for has a strength in it, a power in it, that can impel us to make a difference in new ways. It will connect the dots between our congregations. It will build relationships. It will awaken our hearts, because remembering who we've been at our best, it makes us feel good. We as UUs share a very powerful faith. Appreciative inquiry will help us to step into our calling together.